Hey, and thank you for clicking play. And yes, there is a new version of Outrun for the Amiga done by Reassembler, YouTuber and coder Reassembler. So I'll put a link to his YouTube channel because he's done a bunch of videos on this. On the lead up to releasing it. Now, what he's done is he's basically used the original arcade ROMs, which you then put through a converter to then put into the package to run on your Amiga. Before we get into it, let's talk about why. Now, back in the day, I loved Outrun at the arcade. I've never been particularly good at it, but it looks like this.
Get ready.
What a friggin' fantastic game. And yes, that was just on my main cab without the steering wheel and pedals. Fantastic game. But unfortunately, the best home port that I had access to at the time that this game was out was for the Spectrum. And that looked like this. And look, I'm not going to knock it because I made the best of that and I played it through to completion. Yes, having to load every single level from audio cassette separately. What a pain these days. And for that capture, I actually did that in emulation because it's a lot easier. By the way, in emulation, if you just step it up to double speed, it actually becomes quite playable like this. You can get away with things like that in an emulator, which is great. But when I got my Amiga back in the day, my Amiga 500, I had high hopes because the Amiga was capable of games like Lotus, and that played like this. So surely, look, let's not go there again.
US Gold present from Sega.
Quick bit of footage of what it actually looks like. But I've got a whole other video mocking that port of Outrun. I'll put a link in the description. But so, this version from Reassembler, it requires an AGA Amiga 1200 or greater with at least an 030 accelerator with that running at 50 megahertz. That's what he puts down as the minimum specification. So there is a problem. My A1200, yes, it has an 030, but it only runs at 42 megahertz. So keep that in mind. Let's see how playable this version of Outrun is on my A1200. That's where you can choose your music, or if you push up or down, you can just go sound effects. We'll come to that later. It's got to be splash wave.
Get ready.
This is the level that really separates the men from the boys, and it's totally playable. That's because I'm running slow. So this is fantastic. You got the arcade music, you got the graphics, and while you can't have music and sound, what you can do is choose to have the engine sound instead of the music. And you think, well, who would do that? But let's face it, if you've got any boxed version of Outrun complete, what you'll have in there, this is my little tip to you, is you'll have the music on audio cassette. On second thoughts, maybe it's better to find a digital version. So look, I'm sure you'll agree that is friggin' fantastic. Yes, it's slow, some of the starting. It's almost as if the acceleration algorithm slows the whole thing down, is how I perceive it without being an expert in this. But what you'll notice is when graphics slow down, so does the clock, so does time. So it doesn't actually affect your gameplay. It doesn't actually affect your progress in the game. Far out, the sprites and everything, even though being scaled down and adapted for the power of the Amiga, this is stunning. This is absolutely stunning. I love it. Okay, and so because that's as powerful as my Amiga can do, and I feel that is still very playable, I also, I've grabbed some of the footage that I played in emulation using Amiga Forever, and this will give you an idea of what this might play like on an 060. So Reassembler, thank you so much for doing this for the community. And he's been very clever in basically developing this. Yes, it uses the original ROMs, but he does not supply those in his package. You have to supply your own ROMs, therefore staying legally safe. I can't tell you where to get the ROMs. Nobody can tell you where to get the ROMs. But if you get the ROMs, or if you've got the ROMs, then you can play the ROMs. But yeah, this is absolutely stunning, and it really does show what a decent Amiga could have done. I would still like to see, in all honesty, a version that shows off what the Amiga 500 could have got. And I know that's a big ask, but that is really, in my view, all it needs is a bit of a... No, it does need more than a sprite swap. It needs a ground up rebuild. So, yeah, Reassembler, thank you so much for the work you've put in. Fantastic job you've done so much for the community. Thank you for watching.